What is up, everyone? There's been a lot of talk in the last few days regarding the TOPS industry conference. There's a few things off the back of that, though, that I think the excitement has probably overshadowed a little bit that might be a little bit concerning for us card collectors within the hobby long term. We'll chat through those very quickly today, and I'm really keen to get your thoughts on these down in the comments below. Now, there's a blow-up thread here that summarizes things, pretty well in terms of what TOPS have come out and said they want to try and achieve. I think they've talked about, three key pillars that they want to try and improve moving forward. Number one being enhancing the experience for existing collectors, attract new customers. That's a big one for them, as we discussed in the Michael Rubin video, a few weeks ago. Then also make it a bit more sustainable. And they've talked already about using just special packaging and more sustainable packaging. I think they're talking about sustainability from both an environmental perspective, but then also making sure that collectors are going to get their money's worth out of these packs moving forward. Now, in terms of a few other key callouts they've made, and this is where I think some of the questions come, is regarding something like this. They want to basically work with athletes for fewer redemptions. Now, this is an interesting one because essentially in the same breath that they explained wanting to reduce redemptions, they've actually outlined a plan to increase the number of redemptions in the immediate future, which I thought was a little bit strange, right? You're looking at trying to improve a process, trying to remove them altogether, because we know that redemptions, haven't really worked in the hobby ever, really. So they want to get rid of them for the right reasons, right? Get product in the hands of customers with the correct number of cards and autos already within. But the fact that they're talking about getting rid of them, then like I just said, also say, we're going to give you more redemptions up front with things like getting athletes to follow you on Instagram as an example, getting additional cards, creating unique redemptions that differ to what we've seen in the past. Those things, they sound pretty exciting, but when you look at the problems with the redemptions, this just seems like a artificial way to make the boxes a little bit more expensive, perhaps. Like, really, at the grand scheme of things, does somebody really want to be followed by an athlete? Like, that's pretty cool, but there's also implications with that, right? If they're following you and they accidentally share a post of yours and you've said something really bad, that athlete's going to get in trouble from their club, from their sporting organization, right? It's just a whole can of worms that I find pretty interesting. But again, I just find it pretty funny that they want to get rid of redemptions, but at the same time, they're telling you they're creating more redemptions. And at the same time, this goes on to a few other things as well, which I'll get to in a second. I don't have a screenshot to show you, but they talked about, wanting to try and ensure that customers are getting the appropriate number of hits, right? And the way they do that is they want to bring back scarcity. They've talked about that at various times. We've talked about that on this channel, but then they've announced new, frozen refractors. And I feel like a lot of people are talking about that. But if you haven't seen what that is, it's essentially having cards numbered 0 out of 0, -5 out of 0, so on and so forth. Essentially a gimmick to create, more parallels, which again is a very interesting move from a business talking about wanting to make the hobby more sustainable long term, wanting to bring scarcity back, wanting to get, things back in place for true collectors and the hobby to be sustainable long term, right? Because right now there is far too much product, there's far too much stuff being printed. So it's hard to try and get value out of these hits that you're hitting, right? Because you've got a numbered card out of 10, but how many numbered cards out of 10 are now produced in every single product across the whole year, right? There's so friggin' many. So stuff is becoming, quite diluted, irrespective of the fact that we've got so many more people in the hobby. And their answer to this is to create more parallels. Again, I think it's pretty odd. Like, I'm curious to see what they're going to try and do with this moving forward, because, they've seen a concern with regards to the number of products by announcing they're going to cull, some of these. So they've also announced that from a TOPS perspective, and now I'm talking through Fanatics through TOPS, right? These products will not be released in 2023, and they might come back in the future, but they won't be released right now. And that's a number of product to cull, but at the same time, they've also announced they want to try and do some more Chrome stuff as well. But again, it's pretty interesting that they're, getting rid of product, which I think is a good thing. I think there's far too much product out there, but then they want to increase the number of parallels elsewhere. It's like, okay, you're sort of taking from one bucket and putting it into another, but you've still got two buckets with the same amount of stuff within them, right? And that's a really poor analogy. My brain's not working right now, but I think you guys get the point of what I'm trying to say. It seems to be they're just, shifting things, fudging things to get the perception that they're trying to make it better. But are you actually making it better by getting rid of it from one area and bringing it back somewhere else? Like, I don't know. I don't know how you can fix redemptions by bringing more redemptions in. I don't know how you can bring scarcity back by bringing more parallels in. It's a pretty, interesting situation. And again, it's a hard thing to try and manage, right? I'm not an expert in this space. I'm not working front and center, so I don't see the things as they're happening from first-hand experience. But from the outside looking in, I think those questions that I've just asked, are perfectly valid. It's a really, really interesting situation. They're doing a few other things as well that they've touched on. They've announced that there's, some big thing coming in the next month or two that's going to change the hobby. I think is how they described it, next month or two, not the next 2 or 3 weeks. I can't recall, which of the two it was. But they've talked about it being the biggest thing to ever happen within the hobby. And Brian Gray was on AIH podcast or channel, I should say, along with, Colin from Sports Card Radio. And they asked him what he thought this news was. And he basically said, I've got no idea, because the biggest thing to ever happen to the hobby would have been Fanatics stealing the licenses, right, of Topps and basically pulling the rug from underneath everyone, which is true. So how much bigger than that does it actually have to be? He's got the expectation that it might be something around LeBron being an exclusive signing for them potentially. But again, it's a pretty interesting thing. Like, watch this space. Like, what could it be? Could it be their breaking network? Is that the thing they want to announce? So let's sort of see what happens with that. Again, I think a lot of people are, very excited about this stuff. It's pretty cool to see change within the hobby, right? Like, we love collecting cards. It's been pretty stale for quite some time. So having someone like, Fanatics come in and disrupt is a really good thing. I work in the area of disruption, and I think it's a really, really cool thing, because you have an opportunity to create, new markets within existing markets and make things better for everyone involved. So it's okay to be excited about this sort of stuff, but I just don't know if we should be letting them off the hook just yet, right? They've basically said all these things, but then they've also said things that backtrack on the things they've already said, right? You want to get rid of redemptions, but you want to add more redemptions in. You want to get scarcity back, but you want to create more parallels. Okay, it's like, okay, where's the end game in that? Are you actually going to follow through? What are you trying to achieve? So on and so forth. Let's sort of see, what happens. I'm really keen to get your thoughts on this, because, like I said, lots of people seem really, really excited about it. And I think it's perfectly okay to be passionate and excited about this news, because like I just said, it's new. Let's get excited. But at the same time, we should still be holding these guys accountable to make sure they do have the best intentions long term. Like, there's still a lot of concern around what Fanatics has in place for the hobby. The things that Michael Rubin has talked about with regards to the amount of money and marketing he wants to import into this hobby, into this market, is, insane. Like, what is that going to look like long term? What is it going to look like for people trying to get parallels, and so on and so forth? I stand by my statement the other day that they need to, increase volume of printing, right, if they want to get more people involved, but they need to keep a stranglehold on these parallels, on these hits, as tight as possible, because, what's happening right now, like I alluded to a little bit earlier, there's so much gold product, right? So many cards numbered out of 10. There's so many one-of-ones across every single product. There's more product every single year. It just keeps growing, exponentially. The fact that everybody's, really passionate about the hobby now, and they're buying up all these things and they're putting them in one touches, they're getting them graded. How is that stuff going to be sustainable in 5-10 years time if everybody's obsessed with keeping it mint, right? The reason why cards were, from the 90s and early 2000s are worth things now is because nobody kept them. The same stuff with the cards from the 50s and things like that. Nobody kept them in good condition. Kids played with them. Kids threw them around. But now you've got so much more volume. Everybody's protecting the crap out of them. Okay, what's the value of these going to be like long term? If they've got ambition about trying to keep the product, healthy and sustainable for 10, 15, 30, 40, 50, 60 years down the line, and they think they can get that many more people coming in to support it, okay, that might work. But at the same time, if you keep printing things the way they are these people in 20 years going to give a crap about things that are so common today? Like, these hits are not that rare anymore. So again, I know I just went on a bit of a tangent towards the end, as I often do in my videos, but I'm really keen, to chat with you all. I think you can drop some comments down below, please, because I really want to chat with you all and get an understanding on what your thoughts are, on this situation. I think some good news out of Topps, but at the same time, some interesting comments from them as well. Let me know your thoughts and we can chat through it as always. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Cheers.